Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Future of Decisions Now podcast. Hosted by Era Technologies CEO Fred Lalillo, we look at the impact of enterprise AI and digital decision-making on the future of work through the eyes of thought leaders, practitioners, and tech experts. On this episode, Fred sits down with Juan Carlos Parada, Executive Vice President of Global Customer Operations at Unilever, the multinational fast-moving consumer goods company. This podcast is brought to you by Era Technology. Check the links in the episode description for resources explaining how Era can help your business automate decision-making. Or head to eratechnology.com for more information. And now, onto the show.
Welcome to the Future of Decision Now podcast. I'm your host, Fred Lalillo, the co-founder and CEO of Era Technology. Today, I'm super excited to welcome Juan Carlos Parada, JC Parada, the EVP of Customer Operations at Unilever. JC, welcome.
Thank you, Fred. Always a pleasure to be here with you.
What are we doing here on a Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock in San Diego in a beautiful hotel instead of being on the beach? We're doing a podcast here. So appreciate you doing that. Thank you very much. Why don't we start by introductions? Why don't you introduce yourself, your role, your career, what you do at Unilever?
Excellent. Well, I don't know what we're doing here, but certainly it's always a pleasure to be here. I'm Juan Carlos Parada, and I'm running customer operations, as you said. I've been 12 years with Unilever. I've done all my career in supply chain, more than 20 years with P&G, and today based in London, running the global operations of Unilever and the transformation of those operations.
And the accent is from?
Probably a little bit from around the world, but originally from Venezuela.
You have lived around the world. Thanks for that, JC. So you and I have, I'll start with a slightly personal question, because you and I have been working together for quite some time. And every time we meet like this, every opportunity that we have, I'm always surprised by how visionary you are. You're always bringing the next project, the next idea, the next iteration of the big idea that would help transform and improve the operations at Unilever. But you're also myopically focused on execution. So you're always balancing this vision and execution. So we spend time talking about where we want to go next, and the rest of the conversation is execution, execution, execution. Where is this coming from? Where is the drive to basically innovate and execute? Because I found like leaders always have one trait more than the other. You kind of bring them both. So talk about how that came about. And first of all, do you agree with what I'm saying? And second, how that came about? How do you develop that skill?
Well, it's an interesting question, the way you put it. I think you bring to my mind a couple of thoughts. I've been using the concept of perform and transform for a while. And I have found that it's extremely easy for people to understand and structure their minds around that concept.
Perform and transform.
Correct. How do you encompass those two? And I believe, now that you ask that, probably along the years, I understood that I need a deep sense of direction and a visionary leadership. Without that, I'm not at my best. I believe it's DNA. Probably as many of us, as you are, we're achievers. And what are we going to achieve? Well, we start with that vision. And I think as I have practiced that skill a long time, that's given me a tremendous sense of energy and passion for what we do. However, if this doesn't come to fruition, it just stays on paper. Then I grew up, I started in manufacturing, and I grew up in supply chain. So I'm about the tangible and about delivering. And then when you combine this, what you are making me think now is that probably as we achieve things and I learn more, that also in turn is feeding the system. What else? Because when you get closer, I learned that in leadership, when you get closer to your vision, and if you don't renew that vision, you're done as a leader. You start your decline. Then that knowledge and getting close to the vision triggers the need, and that's what I call DNA again, to develop that new vision. And I believe this has become a cycle that I have defined as perform and transform, and is serving me well.
And we were having a quick bite for lunch before, and we were talking about the fact that in 2024, if you're a leader in supply chain, customer operation, you have to be able to do both. You have to be able to see in the future and define a vision, but you also have to anchor that vision in a very deep understanding of the business, of the technology, of the operations, of the people. And you don't have this, my job is to set the strategy, and then, because the strategy at that point gets isolated. You have to anchor it in the real potential of the organization. How do you keep yourself up to date with what technology can do and what the organization can do? And then we'll dive into the projects itself. What's your recipe here?
Well, I think I don't know if it is a recipe, but certainly the leading thought is humility. Mm-hmm. And a deep sense of competing to win. Why I say those? Because in the end, the first point, how are we going to win, is basically is to satisfy our customers and consumers, right?
Yeah.
So then that guides what we have and what we don't have. And when we don't have it, it's a tremendous source of energy and direction. I think having that in mind, then you say, okay, fine, this is what we have to do, but who is doing this better? What is happening out there? And I dedicate important time with me and with my team to talk with people, to be honest, like you, and similar leaders in the industry, and travel. When we travel to learn, to do something that I cannot do in my office. And then basically what we do is, is to please the consumer and to meet unsatisfied needs. And second, win. Win against what? Who is doing better than us? And what are the latest development in the industry? When you put these three things together, we dedicate time, and I structure our efforts and my connections with the market and the industry to learn. That's what I said, humility first, because when I stop learning, I think is the end.
Yeah, and you do that well because, look, we're in Silicon Valley. We have a lot of learning expeditions. Companies from all over the world come to learning expedition, but they're mostly passive. They're mostly passive expeditions. Folks get out of the office, they bring 10, 15 people, and they go from their hotel to visit, X number of companies, and very often we're one of them. But you can feel like, they're paying attention, but it's a passive. What you guys do differently, and what I've seen and observed with you, it's a very active session. It's active learning. You're challenging everything. Your team is on their toes, and you're pushing them to think differently. So this is not just being outside of the office, it's being profoundly engaged with the learning part, which is something that I've noticed you guys do very well, and you do very well.
Thank you.
So shifting gear toward what you've been doing at Unilever and the transformation that you've been driving, decision intelligence has been defined as a category for several years now, but we started working with Unilever before it even was defined as a category. So a lot of initiative, but you came in about 3 years ago and took the leadership of this initiative and had a very myopical focus on the restructuring and digitization of customer operations with decision intelligence and other. Can you talk about it? What was the driver for that project? What was the main goal? Where are you in the journey?
Well, I think probably it's a little bit complicated question because there are different angles. But I would say that the first point starts with the decision of the company to say, how do we find a way to digitize at a scale and faster?
Yeah.
And that gave me the opportunity, that the company gave me the challenge, help us to design an organization that basically will be able to create the conditions to better satisfy the customers and leverage this base of systems and architecture that we have put in place to digitize the company at a scale.
Yeah.
Everything started from there. And we launched a challenge, which is to become the supplier number one in the industry. And we defined this based on the conditions that we see that was required to succeed. We defined this as a customer-centric, tech-driven, people-first process.
Customer-centric, tech-driven, people first, okay?
Because I believe this is the recipe of success and has been serving us well. Mm-hmm. When we put that in place, basically we said we have to unleash our people and remove all these transactional activities that are consuming them day to day, and limiting all their innovation, all their passion to create more intellectual value. That was the beginning, a need of the company, a challenge that we get, and seeing the opportunity to unleash the people potential. When you put this together, we started the journey. You helped me a lot. But to be honest, in hindsight, when I look at the last 3-4 years, I started to see that we, in a large extent, we were thinking a lot on automation, even hyper-automation. We were doing a lot of things that I call doing digital.
Yeah.
But we were missing the point to being digital.
Yeah.
When that thought came to our mind, then that unleashed a different level of thinking and questions to our people. And this is what has accelerated more the work even with you in ERA, to leverage more what can we extract from this, what we call the cognitive layer, in which you are one of our suppliers of choice, to accelerate the creation of things that are smarter than automation, that build on that. And this is where some breakthrough projects have been coming from our own people, because now they are seeing the benefit, they are trusting the system, and this time that they are releasing, they are dedicated to serve better the customers and innovate.
Talk more about, this is fascinating. Talk more about the being digital. So I think that's a very big concept, going from doing digital, acting digital, to being digital. That means, my understanding is putting digital at the core of your operations, be part of embedded with your teams. What is your definition of being digital? If you look at a company, you say they're doing digital or being digital. What does that mean for you?
Well, the thinking process started in a very basic way, let's say that way. I think we quickly started to understand and see the benefits of automation, RPAs, or also in manufacturing with machines and all that. However, some people and some areas, and visiting suppliers, external companies in China, in the US, in different places, they show me how they are thinking about data and how to extract decisions and guidance and opportunities from data. Mm-hmm. When I saw that, and I get back to our operations to talk to our people, I noticed that people continue to think about the RPAs and the automation. But then I asked, and we were generating, even in manufacturing, we were generating tons of data and putting more data takers to measure everything. But what are we doing with that data? Yeah. We were not doing much with that data beyond the automation itself. And then that generated a click to say, what happens if you just put some intelligence to this data? What happens if we use this data to predict? If we understand how to model systems behavior? And this started to trigger a different thinking, and people notice. Let's say, let me oversimplify to make a point. Am I just automating, or I'm doing something with the data that are extracting? I believe that point of generating data versus doing something, extract value from data, I could define it as the most simplistic way to see the change from doing digital to being digital.
But you're also evolving. That's fascinating. You're also evolving in a market that is digital. So when you talk about Unilever shifting to being digital, you are digital, but in a world that is increasingly digital. The way you engage with your consumers is completely changed over the last 15 years. The way you promote, you sell, all of that is digital. So I guess if you're not digital, you cannot really perform, because the world around you, you're both from your suppliers to your consumers, is completely digital. I mean, the acceleration of the business cycle, the consumerization, the complexity requires you to be digital.
Correct.
It's a very interesting concept.
It is, but it's also an ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
I think the industry is evolving. The solutions are changing every day. We have to learn constantly, and we have to connect that to real, tangible business solutions that add value.
Yeah.
When you put the three things, that's why we came to this phrase to say it needs to be customer-centric, because this is the key source of inspiration for solutions. Yeah. Tech-driven, which is exactly what we're talking, and people first, because if people cannot cope, if they don't evolve, we won't be able to leverage the ecosystem.
I have a question that I didn't plan to ask you, but if you look at where Unilever sits within the pyramid of the best performing supply chain companies as ranked by Gartner, it's always on the top 5. and it must be year after year in the top 5. You're even outside of the pyramid because you're so advanced. The masters, right? But I was just listening to you. I'm thinking, well, that's how you become a master, because you could easily rest on your laurels and say, look, we're so good. But no, I was back to my initial question to you. Every time we connect, every time I talk to you and to your colleagues at Unilever, there's this constant drive to be on top and to outperform, to service to customers better. Just a thought, but it's really interesting because you're just giving an answer to the question, which is how do you do it? How do you remain a master? Because you're always challenging yourself. So with that, talk about Sky. So I don't know, 2 years back, maybe you came to us with your team and you said, okay, we're doing all these skills. We're deploying human in the loop, human on the loop, human out of the loop for many different, digital competencies. But there's this big project called Sky. You've talked about it publicly many times. And we embarked on that journey. And I think it echoes pretty well what you were just saying earlier. So tell us a bit more about Sky. What is it? Why is it important? Why does it allow you to be digital? And then where you are in the journey.
Well, Sky is a nice story that is being scaled at global level now. I think the point started with our teams with Walmart have developed along the years a very robust relationship, and we partner with the concept of CPFR. Mm-hmm. And despite the teams were doing excellent, and Walmart was very happy with the work, it was very intense. It was with not free of ups and downs, and also it was the constant healthy insatisfaction in a very collaborative way of our customer that. What else can we do even better?
Yeah.
Then with this challenge, we were in a creation session, and we said, what else can we do? Well, we have tremendous amount of data. Walmart has outstanding systems. And the question is, what are we doing with this? And then it came a dream, because it was literally a dream. Let's say breaking paradigms in the industry. We said, well, if we have all this data, and we put aside the traditional thinking of commercial thinking of your side and my side. Because in the end, what we want is to serve our common consumers. That's good for you and for me. If that's the center of the stage, and we have all the data, what would be the possibilities if we use that data to run this as one supply chain with artificial intelligence, to be able to manage the data and being digital to a new way that we haven't thought before, and that will exceed the computational ability of our CPFR people.
Yeah.
Walmart engaged immediately, and they said, let's give it a try. That was the beginning. This focus on the customer, accepting the challenge, and a little bit of the creativity with moving from, to your previous question, doing digital, which is what we were doing, to being digital together. And extracting together as one supply chain and extracting value from that relationship. That was the origin of everything. And now what I have learned is that we started with that. The numbers in terms of the optimization of the supply chain, when it comes to all the variables, forecast, sell-in, supply systems, adjustment to my production plan, to materials plan, building perfect trucks and shipping those trucks, that drives in turn the minimum cost and maximum service. All those numbers, the numbers exceeded our expectations. And then, of course, that gave us a lot of trust in the system and excitement. And this is where we decided to expand this globally. And every single customer that we have discussed this in Europe, in the US, everywhere, they engage immediately as one of the most progressive solutions that we have today in the market. And this gave us, in a phrase, what I call today an intelligent fulfillment system.
So I was reading on the way here to San Diego from San Francisco, I was reading in the plane an article that you had an interview on the consumer packaged good and mentioned that 98% OSA in the initial pilot market as a result. That's very significant, right? So you have on-shelf availability, almost the perfect on-shelf availability. That drives so many different areas of customer satisfaction, financial performance. You want to talk a little bit about what you're seeing now that you're deploying this technology and this approach?
Well, yes. I mean, the numbers, as I mentioned, they have really exceeded our expectations.
Yeah.
We were expecting a significant step up in results, but certainly we are achieving these levels of on-shelf availability. In a stock is basically by a store is more than that. Only in one of our operations, say in Mexico, we develop, the system generates more than 8 million forecast combinations by SKU, by a store per day. This is billions of iterations per day to perfect or to improve the forecast. Globally, in all the customers that we have tried, the forecast has improved in a range of 15 to 2,000 bips in every single customer with the algorithm and all the development that, by the way, you and your team have helped us to develop. So really, super thank you to you wholeheartedly, because this is really a source of excitement. But then this has created a whole new level of trust with the customer, and this selling now with a significantly improved forecast is allowing me to master slave my supply system with an always on process. Of course, I mean, this is effort. The effort is being reduced more than 35% because people don't need to touch the pain of developing a forecast that anyways systemically discarded because I have a promotion that will change everything and all that. All that have been put aside. And of course, the costs have been going down and the stocks have been going down and the sales have been growing above the average of the category, because then we can maximize much better more commercial plans.
And this is, and thanks for the plug on the work we've done together on this. It's just, my team is fascinated and obsessed with that project because it's smart and it's vast amount of data. I could say massive amounts of data. We're pulling the sellout data on a very frequent basis, depending on the market, working at that lower level of granularity. But it's also deep machine learning. I mean, we talk about AI and you read all these articles saying, yeah, it doesn't have the impact. And no, this is machine learning at a pretty sophisticated level. If we go into the detail of what is done, delivering real impact as you can measure it across your customer satisfactions, your COGS, your everything. So super excited about that. But then back to my previous point, JC, where every time I meet you, you have a new idea. You went straight from Sky 1.0, you skipped Sky 2.0, and you went straight to what's called now Sky 3.0. So first of all, I want to understand what's wrong with 2.0 and why you went straight to 3.0. But we'd love to hear more about what that new, not initiative, because you're already working on it and deploying it. But tell us about this, all jokes aside. Why not 2.0?
Okay. Well, there are different stories about, because it's becoming a story, why the leapfrog to 3.0. But so we can say that some people have said that it's a tremendous amount of leadership to leapfrog straight from 1 to 3. But part of the reality is that the team found some opportunities in improving the logistics integration to the Sky 1.0. And then tactically, that improvement, they call it 2.0. But no one knows.
No one knows
then
about it.
Everyone sees 1.0 to 3.0.
It was, in my language, it was a beta version. Now okay.
Yeah. So for now, let's leave it as a great amount of leadership to leapfrog to 3.0. But that's the joke. The reality is that we have to adjust some things tactically, but then we stay with the strategic thing. 1.0 was a strategic thinking. 3.0 is a strategic thinking. Where we are going is, again, to your point, we started Sky 1.0 generated a lot of excitement in our sales colleagues, in the customers, and in our own top management. And then we said, I always told them, and I have had this in mind for 2-3 years after visiting many companies outside, but we didn't have the maturity to put this on the table until now. What I had in mind? Are we doing enough decision intelligence when it comes to demand creation? We have some efforts, very smart about driving intelligence in elements of demand creation, but are we connecting all the variables? Are we creating a multivariables correlations intelligence system to talk and to connect these variables as we do with fulfillment, but for demand creation. That's the genesis of Sky 3.0. Then the concept is we have an intelligent demand fulfillment system. We want now to create an intelligent demand creation system that will bring more variables as we learn, because this is just starting. And then you can imagine two agents, demand fulfillment and demand creation, connected by an artificial intelligence engine, Sky 3.0, that will make all this system completely interrelated, maybe agentic AI with two agents talking and adding value to each other, in which we maximize the simulations for possibilities of demand creation. And immediately, in an always-on system, you synchronize this with the fulfillment to secure the supply. And after doing all these simulations in the fake world, let me call it that way, then you release the simulation to the real world with tremendous impact. So the excitement is high. The idea is now clear, but at a high level. Now the work is to develop this, and we already have selected the pilot, and we want to accelerate this. Is one of the top projects in the company now, and basically the intention is to accelerate in the following 12 to 18 months.
And as a result of having these two, what you call agents, which are agents, AI agents talking, you are going to be creating a unique data set that will allow you to learn from every interaction that these agents have. So it's not just about automation, it's truly here about augmentation. You expect the system to deliver more accurate, more impactful decisions closer to the point of impact and closer to real time. So it's just not just agents for automation, it's really an augmentation play as well, correct?
I think so, and I believe so, and even more hearing this from experts like you. And basically, you're giving me the idea that as we learn more, of course, we are clear where we want to go. But what I don't know is how much am I going to learn. Yeah. You're already hinting me that we will learn a series of things that I'm sure in a not too distant future will be the source for the next thing that we are not seeing yet.
But that's exactly right, JC. So with the agents working, you actually digitize all their interactions. Everything that they do is being structured. Now you have to structure it properly in your decision data model, but it's going to be the source of the next iteration of improvement.
I think so.
You started by basically pulling in your transactional data, both from your ERPs and from your vendors and suppliers in your ecosystem. You're deriving a set of decisions. You build another set of data coming from those decisions, and that's how you get to the next level of decision augmentation. So, I mean, it's super excited. You guys keep pushing the envelope and staying on top. So and securing that spot on the right side of the pyramid. So that's super exciting. Many challenges, I assume, when you're driving this kind of program. Talk about how you're bringing the company with you in that journey. We talked about vision, we talked about your focus on execution, we talked about the role of technology, but change. How do you drive people to not be left behind with these projects? How do you drive change? And what advice do you have for folks who are thinking about an initiative like what you're doing?
Well, I think it's basic but very difficult to achieve.
Yeah,
I think in the end it has to connect to how do you really. In the end, it's about improving the business results, right? And then how do you translate it to the priorities of the company? If we are in the journey of accelerating top and bottom line and in a consistent way, right? Every single project that will have the credibility and the clarity. I think it's about clarity. First is about to your point. First is about to define what is the way in which we are going to add value to this business plan, and typically the answer is in serving better the consumer.
Yeah.
Then basically, how do you define sharply the problems that you want to solve? And I believe this is probably the most difficult one, because from here then you develop a plan that basically our upper management will engage and say, yes, we want to make this part of the strategy of the company. And then from there, you have an element of traction. I believe this is the first big battle, and it requires focus and sharpness of the definition of the problem, and then to build the business case. The second point is cultural, I would say. How do you bring all the team to say, let's do this, and what is in it for me? It's a foundation of leadership. How do we find the collective benefit so people can engage and they understand the benefit? And that is critical because there is a principle I believe in management that maybe the transformational leadership tends to be a lonely process. Because a lot of people will say, well, why to take the risk? And then probably some people will be watching to see where to go. So you have some opponents and you have some people that depending if things go well, they will align to you and they will help. Or if they see the risk, they prefer to take the other side. So in the end, you need to go building your way with the quick wins that create trust. So people get more encouraged and they see the benefit for them. And then that takes me to the third point. I think in the end, it's about people, because sometimes when we go too fast and we don't bring people along, they don't know how to contribute. And some of them would even see it as a threat for them because they don't see what is in it for me in the future. And I think these probably are the main three blocks. But in essence, it's about clarity. And if I put it in 2 words, it's clarity and engagement of the big ecosystem.
And the clarity comes from the top as well. So I think you do a lot of work to get alignment with the top and then with the rest of the organization. You have a very complex matrix organization. I've seen you really working hard to secure this alignment on the vision, but also on the results that are expected. And then it's working with the folks. JC, we're running out of time, but thank you so much for spending a bit of time on a Sunday afternoon in San Diego with me. For sharing your insights. I think they're incredibly valuable. Sometimes when you're at the top of the race, you don't realize how good you are. And I can tell you from seeing many other companies that you guys are keep rebuilding that lead vis-a-vis the rest of the market when it comes to decision intelligence, decision augmentation. And thank you for the partnership, because we're learning a lot working with you, working with your team. You keep pushing us to innovate, to work. We think we're always pushing our clients. I think some clients are also pushing us, and we really appreciate that. So thank you so much. And that's the end of our Future of Decision Now podcast. Thank you very much.